All right, so I'm sure you can hear me. Let's start. So yesterday we started talking about the life process of Euglena viridis prior to our studies about amoeba proteins. So today we are looking at another exciting organism. The first two were unicellular that were free living. Now we are looking at a unicellular organism that live in a filamentous form. And the perfect example that we have is Spirogyra porticalis. My mind was on. So we look at Euglena viridis, and today we are looking at Euglena Spirogyra porticalis. So you are all welcome here. Good evening to you all. We start today's lesson in the name of God the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So we talk about a couple of unicellular organisms or some low organisms. We talk about first amoeba proteomes, then we talk about the Euglena viridis yesterday. We look at the structure, the life processes, and its economic importance. Tonight, we are looking at the same features or the same criteria with Spirogyra porticalis. So when we say Spirogyra, if anyone is ready, just tell anything now about Spirogyra, where we can find them, or maybe local name, something like that, and any other organism that normally we do confuse ourselves with Spirogyra too. So I just want to know your relevant previous knowledge, anything you know about Spirogyra, anything that you have read. So I would like if one or two can type in the comment section, or you can open your microphone, you raise up your hand, I will invite you. Then you tell me anything you know about Spirogyra, anything that you want to tell us, or you've read, or you know before even being exposed in our learner material. I'm waiting for any person that is ready to help us in such a way. So please, let's open our microphone. If you are ready, then we can. Yeah, hand is up. You can talk. Harriet also. Yes, please.
Sir, please, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening. You can talk, Harriet.
Uh-huh. I know Spirogyra is a plant, but not a plant in a way. It has chlorophyll that makes it a plant, but has no roots.
Okay, so it has some plant-like features, and you say it has chlorophyll. That is why you are saying it has plant-like features.
Yes.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Very good. Any other person with another idea? Okay, so we thank Harriet for telling us that. Any other person that is into, yeah, I feel I've been a while. Yeah, we know. Talk to us.
Sir, please, I know that fresh water.
Yeah, they live in fresh water. Very good. Very good. Very good. And as usual, they also live in a slow streaming water, or let me say a pond. They normally like the stagnant water, though they can live thrive in gutters with flowing water, but normally they want stagnant part. That is where they can easily and well adapt. So some people call it green in Ghana here. Some call it abutovibre, and normally we find it around waters, gutters, and place that water stay for a very long time. So if you don't scrub your bathroom or gutter for long, you start seeing some of these Spirogyra over there. So that is the name, the English name for it, but the scientific name is Spirogyra porticalis. Now, some people do misrepresent or confuse themselves with Spirogyra and moss. Let me strike this. We have not studied moss yet, but later in year two, we will talk about moss. So moss is like the carpet grass. So if you have seen where they've packed blocks before, like when they mold blocks, when they keep it there for long, first Spirogyra might come on it. Later you will see moss. Moss is like a carpet grass. When you take it, it looks just like a grass. It has its leaves, or let me say leaf-like structures over there, and some rhizoid that are root-like structures. But the Spirogyra that we are talking about is like some is slimy. It's slimy, so it doesn't have roots. So once you, it's very greenish and it's very very slippery. So the one that we like the carpet grass, very small leaves, is called the moss. We will study them as I told you in year two. But today we're looking at Spirogyra, what we can see in gutters, even when it rains and it becomes stagnant at a particular point, you will see them floating on the water surfaces. So later, when it dries up, you see them lying on the bottom of that pond that has dried up. So that is Spirogyra. So commonly, as you can, if you can see my screen, commonly Spirogyra are known as blanket weed. So that is their common name. So they are known as blanket weeds, water sick. The reason is they cover the water surface or the area that they are. So normally if it's water, they try to cover the water surface. If it is you are on scrap gutter or bathhouse or bathroom, you see them spreading over there. That is why they refer to them as blanket weed. They look like weed, but they are not weed. As someone just said, they look like planting that was harriet, but they are not plants because they have plant-like features, but they are not under kingdom planting, but under the kingdom protoctista. So protoctista, we can have animal-like features and plant-like features over there, whereby kingdom planting will be strictly plants, and kingdom animalia will be for strictly animals. So they can also you call water silk or mermaid tresses. So mermaid that talks about water or aquatic life. So these are some common names that they give to them. They are filamentous. So when they say filamentous, it means they are a strand. So I will show it to you. So they are a long chain. So this is just one strand. Sorry, this is just one cell out of the entire filament or strand. So I will explain better. So filamentous form talks about they are in they are arranged in series or they live in a strand form. And they are free floating algae. So they are algae uh, that are free floating. So they can freely float on water. That's why we call them the blanket weed, the memetresses, and all the other accolades that we have given to the Spirogyra porticalis. So normally, as someone just rightly said, they are found in freshwater habitats such as ponds, pools, tanks, lakes, and stagnant waters. Yeah, those you can see some in rivers and the rest, but that is so we say spirogyres are commonly known as blanket weed. I have explained that because they cover the water surface or the area or the land that they are found. They are also called water silk or mimic tresses. Mimic because they are normally found in water. That's where they're supposed to be. When the pond dries up, something happened to them. They try to adapt. We will talk about that very, very shortly. So then they are filamentous. That means they live in trans and in a they live together in a strand or filamentous form. That is, they live together in a compartment or they are attached together. So that is, they are also free floating algae and they are commonly found in fresh water. So the water has to be like pond, a river that doesn't flow. It's to be stagnant water. If it's a river, it shouldn't be flowing that much. There's a reason why they need to be attached to a particular place so that they don't tear apart for them to adapt. So they are also known as pond scam or pond silk because of their filamentous and slimy nature. So they are like a strand, a long chain that has been joined together because of that. And they're also slimy, like they are slippery. They look very, very slippery. That's why you don't take care and you step on them, you can fall. I don't know if someone has gone to when normally when you go to a river or a pond that has stones beneath, or let me say rocks beneath, normally these spirogyra grow on the rock. So if you don't take it, once you step on it, it becomes slippery. So those who have been to river bodies that has stones over there, most of the time we have some of these spirogyra on the stones, and they become very very slippery. That is because of the slimy nature of spirogyra. And if the bathhouse or bathroom is not scrubbed very well, normally on the tiles it doesn't grow very well because they will not get they can't decompose, they get enough nutrients. So on a concrete or a plastered bathroom or bathhouse or a gutter, you normally find them over there, and they become very, very still slippery, which can make you fall with the least mistake. So they can float freely in masses over the water surfaces, and they are capable of movement. The movement we are talking here is not locomotion, it's just a small gliding movement. Because they are so slippery, and they can do that, because even if water moves now, if I blow air and the paper moves, the paper has moved, but the paper didn't move on its own, so they can't locomote. So be sure of that. It's just a small gliding movement, just to position themselves well based on the water current, wind blowing, or because they are slippery, they can just open up themselves to receive enough sunlight for photosynthesis, or to also prevent water shortage when water also is running out, or water is drying up. So they are capable of small gliding movement because of their filamentous nature and their slimy nature. So Spirogyra is seen as a long thread-like grain colonies called filament. So that's why some call them green. The green could be okra soup, but some people call it green. That means they are greenish in color. The more greener they are, the more, let me say, comfortable or adapted they become, or favorable environment they are found within. And they are joined together in a filament end to end, so they are stick together. It's like packing something in batches or in series. That is how the filamentous form of the Spirogyra looks like. And there is no differentiation into base and apex. So for them, they are just a long chain joined together. So you look at one of the chains. This is just a single cell. So it's like several of these put together. So like taking a necklace, any chain that you have, and this is just one part of the chain. So this is just one Spirogyra cell. There's another cell that is laterally attached to it. So together we say it's a filament. So we have one, two, three, but this one has been zoomed in for us to study it, and the exact thing is repeated in all the other Spirogyra cells in the filamental strand. So let's look at the parts and how to label them. So we have the cell wall. So here it looks more like a plant, but it's not in kingdom plant, it's in kingdom protective stuff. So it has a cell wall, that is this layer that we have here. That's the cell wall, and it has a vacuole. So the vacuole will be here. Then we have the cytoplasmic strand. So this is the cytoplasmic strand, and that will lead into the central nucleus. So in the middle here is a central nucleus. You can see my mouse pad, or just look at the screen. We have a central nucleus over here. Then we have the cytoplasmic strand. We have a vacuole, and you see what looks like a tape measure inside that runs up and down throughout. It's a spiral chloroplast. So remember, the chlorophyll or the chloroplast of the euglena was a stellate chloroplast, but the one in the Spirogyra is spiral. It moves up and down, and inside them we have what we call pyrenoids. Those are the small structures we have inside. Let me show you where it was being named. Yeah, very good. It is named at the left side here. So it's a pyrenoid. One is here, one is there. So these are to store excess starch after they are being produced via photosynthesis. So that's the cell wall of a neighboring cell. So that's the cell wall here. Then we have the mucilage that covers it. That makes it very, very slippery. So that's the cell wall. Then all of this part is the mucilage. So we have the cytoplasm here, and a part of the cytoplasm comes inside. So you can see this is the cytoplasm, and a part of it is like a thread. That's how we call it a cytoplasmic strand. In between it, we have the cell, the central nucleus. Then we have the cellular cell wall here. I've talked about cytoplasmic strand, and that is a neighboring cell. Then we have the mucilage that I've talked to you about. So generally, this is the structure of the Spirogyra porticalis. So we can have several of them, maybe tens of thousands in a chain. We can have hundreds of them in a chain, or even millions, depending on how they have colonized that area of land or water. let me just finish with a fun fact. If there are any question, I will invite you to ask. Now, the fun fact try to help you understand. So, Spirogyra is from the Greek word, and the first one is spiria. So, the spiria means quail. So, like from the word spiral, so Spirogyra, Spiro means from the word spiral, but originally from the Greek word called spiria, and the spiria means coiling, and the gyrus means twisted. So let's look here. Why is it called that name? So it's like a twisted quill or a twisted that's simple as a twisted quill. So look here, the spiral chloroplast, what has it done? It has been twisted and it has been quelled in within the body of the organism or the spirogyra that we are studying. So that we say it is the spirea twisted gyrus. So a coil that has been twisted. So that is the actual meaning of the name in the Greek rendition. If there are some questions you can ask at this point in time concerning the habitat of the Spirogyra, porticalis, its structure, and the fun fact. If you have a question, ask, or else I will continue with the life processes. You can raise up your hand or type it in the message section. Alright, there are no questions here. That means well understood. If you had, you can just note it down. I will invite questions after I've talked about 2 or 3 of the life processes. So let's talk about nutrition. So it has chloroplast, so I'm sure the understanding is just as mine that since that's a chloroplast, then there's chlorophyll, then it will undergo phototrophic nutrition, that is photosynthesis, using sunlight in addition with carbon dioxide and water to prepare their own food through the process we call photosynthesis. So Spirogyra porticalis is a photosynthetic organism. That one you should know by now because it contains a spiral chloroplast that enables it to synthesize its own food. So it will use sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Although they can thrive in and grow in an environment that is rich in nutrient, they still have to undergo photosynthesis. So Spirogyra produce their own food using the green pigment, that is the chlorophyll. So they'll use sunlight, then the sunlight will be like the energy or the heat to burn carbon dioxide in the presence of water to release carbon dioxide in the presence of water to release food for us, then we get oxygen as a byproduct. So that is the photosynthetic processes for us. So as you can see, even though the cells are attached, but each of them are independent. So though this one's attached to this, they are all independent. So normally I use an apartment for example. So like these three, they are in although they are in the same building but different apartment. So this one has everything inside. So there's no need going here for anything. You have your own living room, kitchen space, bathroom, living room, anything that you want, even a porch, anything that you want, a restroom. You have everything here. So no need to go to the other apartment. So this one is independent of its own, and everything that goes here doesn't depend on what goes in here. So we say they are in filamentous form, but they are independent. Your presence doesn't strictly affect the other's presence or its adaptation. So Spirogyra, they are able to prepare their own food. So each of them prepares its own food, has its own reproduction and everything, like a solitary cell, but just that they live like in an organized community, or let me say they live in a filamentous form. So that is what happens over there. Even though the cell is physically attached to one another, it is physiologically independent, so they perform their 7 life processes differently. Hence, each cell is capable of producing its own food. Then, so when it is exposed to light, part of the glucose molecules formed during photosynthesis are converted into insoluble starch. Now, why is it saying this? If it is exposed to light, the reason is it can still photosynthesize, so it will store. That is the explanation to that. But when it is in dark, it can undergo photosynthesis. So even what is stored in the pyrenoids, it will bring it up, convert them to glucose, then it will enjoy. As humans, we do. Then if you are eating, you store excess glucose as glycogen. Some will be fat deposit in the subcutaneous under our skin as subcutaneous fat. Some will be a visceral fat. Others will be fat in the liver and the rest. So all these things, if you are eating, you keep up building up fat or building up your glycogen reserve. But if you are fasting, then excess fat will be converted, so as glycogen will be converted. Then you normalize your sugar level. So if they are exposed to light, it means they are still eating, or they can still eat original food, or maybe say fresh food. So they will rely on photosynthesis and still be storing. When there is dark, that it cannot undergo photosynthesis, then it will convert or to convert excess starch into glucose for its consumption. So that is how it undergo nutrition, strictly autotrophic nutrition or photosynthesis. When there is light, it will do photosynthetic processes. But if there's darkness, it can convert a stored food in the pyrenoids for consumption. Let me talk about respiration before I will allow you to ask questions if you have a question. So we have seen how it feed strictly through autotrophic nutrition or photosynthesis. Now respiration. So it's a plant. So we say it's plant-like. So it will need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis will later help us get oxygen, and the oxygen will be needed or used for respiration. So that is what will occur over there. So let me talk about respiration properly. Spirogyra porticalis undergo respiration to obtain energy for the breakdown of stored sugars. So how does it get the energy? By getting oxygen. So if it is in light and it undergo photosynthesis, it will have excess oxygen, which it will utilize some for respiration, and the excess will even come out for into the water for other organisms to use. So Spirogyra takes in carbon dioxide. Remember, I've been telling you the carbon dioxide plants taking is not for respiration. It is strictly for photosynthesis, but it will produce enough oxygen for them for their consumption and expel into the environment for other organisms to use. So they'll release relatively large amount of oxygen using specialized called stomata. So you see, like it's just like a plant, just like a plant. Just that they don't have all the features that plants are supposed to have. They don't have fruit and seed and the rest. No, and they don't have actual leaves, but they have stomata, which plants do have. So they release oxygen remains trapped as tiny bubbles between the tangling strands of their filamentous body that help them to float. So why are they able to float? One, from physics you can apply that. It means they are less denser than the water. Why are they less denser than the water? This is an adaptation. They catch air bubbles around themselves that makes them lighter, and they spread up. So they do something. That's why we say they are capable of movement. If they converge together, they can sink. When light intensity is too high, they can come together, or let me say they can converge or compress. So as they move or converge, they become relatively denser, so it can sink a little bit in water. But when they want enough life, they open up. Slowly they open up. As they spread, they become lighter because volume will increase. And when volume increases, density will decreases. Then it becomes less dense than water. It can float. So that's why we say the Spirogyra, because of its filamentous nature and slimy nature, it is able to move. That is the part of movement that it does. So they can form water bubbles, they can converge or expand so that they become less dense and they will float on water. So this helps them to float in water, and they become visible as a slimy green mat. So we call them the blanket weed or the mimic treasures. Because of that, they cover the surface of the water or the substrate that they live on, or let me say the surface that they are found on. So let me continue from here. In the night, so at night and on overcast days, the process reverses and Spirogyra consumes oxygen. So in the night, it won't undergo photosynthesis. So what happens is that it will need oxygen from the environment. So since it needs oxygen from the environment, it will be used for respiration and carbon dioxide will come out. It's not like the C3 plants that can keep excess carbon dioxide during the night for photosynthesis. So they will bring the carbon dioxide out during the day. That is when they will ask for the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So for respiration, they will produce carbon dioxide as the waste product. If it is daytime, it will not come out, it will enter the carbon cycle or what we call the photosynthetic pathway. If there's a question you can ask at this point, the reproduction is a little bit detailed, so I want to give it maximum time. If you have a question, you can raise up your hand. You can type it in the comment section. If you have something that you want to add up, maybe you've read something, you want to add more information to what I've given to you, you are welcome. Question, contribution at this point in time. I'm waiting for a very few seconds. If you understand too, you can give me some emotions. If you understand, give me a thumbs up. If you don't understand, let me know with a thumbs down. But if you don't understand, let me know why you don't understand. Then I will explain to you. Okay, I see Emilia Krasi, Nana Ama. Okay, I see you. Very good. So it means those who are following do understand. Lillian joined today very late, so I hope you are still with that. Precious, it's been a long time. Jessica, sorry. Thanks very much for understanding. So let's continue. Now, reproduction. This is where questions might come. Okay, your hand just came up. So next time, be fast with your questions. Harriet always will ask your question.
So please, how do the Spirogyra absorb water?
Okay, very good. How does Spirogyra absorb water? Can I ask a follow-up question? Okay, she's off. So it's the same way amoeba and other organisms absorb water. That is through osmosis. So it can't drink water, it can't open its mouth and drink water. So water gets in via osmosis. Just as through osmosis, water can enter plant and other even animals. So water movement is through osmosis, as simple as that. It is in water. So when the water is more hypotonic, it means more water will enter the body of the Spirogyra through its mucilage to the cell wall, then cell membrane, then enter the cytoplasm. If it's in a hypertonic solution, water will then in turn leave it to balance the one outside. So Harriet, thanks for that question. I'm sure someone too might be wondering about that. It is through osmosis, as you know already. Okay, if there are no questions and she's okay, we can continue. All right. Anyone that has a question, keep it for the next 5 minutes. I will invite you to ask questions very, very shortly. Now let's talk about reproduction. So realize amoeba was reproducing through asexual means, that was binary fission. We realized that the same binary fission occur in Euglena, and we call that one longitudinal binary fission. That is symmetrogenic. That means it produces mirror images similar, just like the same. Then we realize that they can undergo sexual reproduction by forming strains, moving them together. So by either by singamy. So these are the ways that it can go. To realize that the conjugation over there is not well established, so it is still under research, and that is what I want you to know. But when it comes to the Spirogyra, it can undergo asexual and sexual, and the conjugation that we've been talking about is very, very prominent with them. and as well as paramecium. But paramecium will not be studied in year one. It has been moved to year second year. All right, so let me talk about the asexual. Asexual, the A means not. So it means it's not sexual. It means it is not between two parents. It's only one parent that is undergoing that reproduction. So that process is called fragmentation. So fragmentation from the word fragment. Fragment means a piece of something, like if you eat, or like a debris. If you eat your bread, the small part, the debris could be called fragment. So the smaller particle. So it means that it's like the tapeworm. I'm sure you've heard about this before. The tapeworm is having the same feature. If they are removing tapeworm from someone's leg or feet and it got torn, just a little bit of the fragment has the opportunity or the ability to grow into another. So the reason is they have something we call in biology or insect studies, entomology, as metameric segmentation. Metameric segmentation means that each segment has the same ability to live on its own. It has its sex organs or sex cells. It has its nutrition. It can perform all the seven life processes. So a small part of it, if only one segment is left, that one segment can live on its own, divide by fragmentation or binary accessory production, then it will form a lot. So it's like, let me use this one, sugar cane or cassava. You see, cassava has a lot of nodes and internodes. If you get just one eye, if one eye can show and you put it down, it gets enough water and other necessary condition, it can grow to become another bigger cassava plant. It wasn't the whole cassava plant that you planted, just a small part, of maybe just 5 centimeters or 3 centimeters. You planted it, it has now given you a very large cassava plant. That is how Spirogyra is. That is the same way that the tapeworm is. Just one segment has the ability to reproduce all. So we call that one fragmentation. That is when you are scrubbing or something happen, you step on it, you see that the Spirogyra part will tear. That's small. So if you are scrubbing it and you leave a small part, maybe it was in a crevice or a small hole, you couldn't scrub it well. By next week, you will come, it has spread over the gutter or that place well. Why? That small part that was left is able to grow into another long chain or filament of Spirogyra. So it can undergo asexual by fragmentation. So it will just tear either by pressure or tension. Once it's split, now you can live on your own, another will live on their own, and they decide to grow into become another strand of Spirogyra. So it occurs mainly through a process called fragmentation, and this is under favorable conditions of growth. So you see that organism, when things are favorable for them, they undergo asexual because they can live on their own. But when things are not going on well, they need a partner. That is why they will undergo sexual reproduction. For these organisms that can undergo both, when they are healthier, they can just divide on their own. But when things are not favorable, they need another partner to preserve their progeny for favorable conditions. So the under favorable conditions, the walls of the adjacent cells dissolve. So we will see the walls. I will show you down very here, thereby causing a breakage of the filament. After fragmentation, the vegetative filament develops into a new. So let's look here. So this is one strand of the Spirogyra. That's the septa, and that's the wall that divides them. So you see, this wall will now separate. So once it separates, this part becomes another Spirogyra. This one becomes another Spirogyra, and that one becomes another Spirogyra. So we see we have fragments over here. So this line here is the one that we are seeing here. So it was at this part that they were separated. This one can also separate. Then we can get several daughter cells. So that's the fragmentation in Spirogyra. When things are okay, they have enough food, water, oxygen, everything is intact. They have the ability to split so that they can dominate new areas. This become a fresh. So we see that you go across where Spirogyra is. One place looks very dark, and you see new ones will be forming that are very, very soft and very, very greenish, light greenish and very, very slippery. All these could be as a result of the fact. So the old one will just split out, the septa, they will just be taken away. Then the filament will now dissolve, they separate, then later they are formed again. Then the process continues. So fragmentation is also found to occur. So aside that it occur when things are favorable, it also occur as I first explained through mechanical injury. Someone worked on it. Maybe the wind blew, or let me say the water current flowing downstream was very high. It torn it. The little part that has been torn can germinate wherever it is and it can develop into. So that's why most of the times, if you are scrubbing Spirogyra, you are advised to pour water there very, very fast. If you don't pour water, they say that let me go and fetch water. Maybe 20 minutes you are back. You will come. They are now even solidifying or attaching themselves back into the gravel or the block or the surface that they were. So once you scrub, it's a matter of you pour water just to wash them away. So when they are being pushed away, wherever they have the ability to colonize that place. So that is how fragmentation occur when things are favorable or when it has a mechanical stress. So when Spirogyra filament attains a considerable length, when it becomes too long, it breaks into smaller pieces and they grow again into a mature organism. That is how the fragmentation or asexual reproduction occur in Spirogyra. Now let's look at the sexual. As I told you, during unfavorable condition, they need each other so that they can uh, keep their progeny or stay in the next cycle of the rainfall when things become better. So during unfavorable growth condition, the cytoplasmic content of the cell shrinks. So that is coming to conjugation. So when the cytoplasmic content of the cell shrinks, then it will lose water. They develop a hard covering. I know your hand is up. Let me finish this, then I'll invite you. So right there, let me finish this, then I'll invite you to ask your question so that at least we can cover something better. Because the asexual, I don't think there's something serious over there. So please keep your question. Don't be thinking about the question now. Just try to understand what I'm telling. Maybe I might even answer your question without you even coming to ask. So let me start with the sexual reproduction. It occurs when conditions are not favorable. And what happens is that the cytoplasmic content, so everything within the cell, let me say the protoplasm will shrink and they will lose water because conditions are not favorable. So the sun is scorching, they are becoming dehydrated. So they need to preserve their progeny. So the cell will shrink and lose water. It will develop a hard covering around the cell. So it's like the the amoeba forming cyst. Remember encystment and sporulation in the amoeba when things water dries up. Also like the snail forming a cyst or encystment when it is not raining. You see that the snail will be there maybe 3, 4, 5 months. It will still be there. Nothing happens. So when it rains, now you do see snails are around. Early part of this year, every snail that you see, they'll be hiding somewhere and they are there, sessile, not moving. But now you can see snails. Since it rained last week, we saw snails around. But when it's rain again, you'll still see them the more. So the cytoplasmic content will shrink and they will lose water and a hard covering will form around the cell and this will result in the formation of spores. So the spores are like spawning grains that will, whenever there is rain, it can just sprout out. So you can see Spirogyra in a gutter, they look, let me say, very dry, they look very, very black now. But once it rains, a day or two, you see them very fresh now, slimy, and also greenish. That is what we are talking about at this point in time. So the formation of these spores will depend on the thickness of the cell wall and the ability to move. So the spores in Spirogyra can be of three types. So when conditions are not favorable, they can undergo what we call sexual reproduction. They will form a thick substance around them, that's zygote spore. Then they will keep their integrity. Once it rains, this black resistant wall will now melt, then it can bring new Spirogyra strand. So it can be in two form, three types. That's the aplanazoles, sorry, aplanospores. That is thin-walled and non-motile. That means this one they can't move. Some can also move. That is the achenites. So the achenites are thick-walled and non-motile. They cannot move. And the azygospores, they are thin-walled and motile. So in the formation of these, some are thin-walled, thick-walled, some are motile, some are not, depending on the formation of the sperm. Sorry, I say sperm of the spores. So they'll be like that in humans, but for them, it is the spores that form, and they are like pollen grain or seed. Once it rains, they just sprout or germinate, and a new Spirogyra cell can come out of it. So let me finish this, then I'll invite those who want their question. Then I'll talk about the sexual reproduction very shortly. So while echinites and aplanospores develop into a new filament under favorable conditions, so the echinite, that's the thick-walled and non-motile, and the aplanospore thin-walled and non-motile. So the thick-walled and the thin-walled, they are able to develop into a new filament under favorable conditions. That's when it starts raining. They can now develop into a new Spirogyra strand, and they will decay. So by the azygospores, they fail to fuse during sexual reproduction, and they develop into a new filament asexually. So all the achenites and the aplanospores will develop into a new Spirogyra cell sexually, but that of the azygospore, that's the word A. So the A means not. So that would mean they will not undergo sexual breakdown to get to form a sexual reproduction. Sorry, not through sexual reproduction. So there will be asexual means, and that is the form of adaptation in Spirogyra. So they do that so that even if it is not raining, the water dries up, they can still stand to live for a longer time or the next cycle of their life. If there's any other person who has a question right now, you can also come in. So, okay, the hand is up. Harriet, yes, go get it.
So please, you say the asexual reproduction occurs only when there is favorable conditions.
Yes, that is when mostly it does. Because things are favorable. What do you do? It can just, and that's the simplest way it can reproduce. So sorry, let me bring this in. You see the females, normally when they feel independent, some of them will say, I don't want to marry, I just want kids. I'm sure you've heard some female models saying this. Why? Because they have what it takes. They think they don't need a man for anything. So once they have their money, their substance, they say, no, no, I don't want any man in my life to boss over me. So once I have my kids, that is all. I don't want a man in my life. So you see, them too, when they also have everything at their comfort, they can just divide. So why need to wait for another organism before it can reproduce? So they stick to that reproduction. Harriet, your environment is very, very noisy. Mute yourself. If you have a question, you can come in again. Yeah, thank you very much. So that is the reason why they do that. Because the asexual is very simple. They have everything within their base. They can easily break down. But the sexual one, it goes to a lot of processes. So we join together, then we help each other. So that is why it happened as we have it. If you have another question, you can ask. All right, I think there are no questions yet. Let me continue. So asexual is when conditions are favorable. That one, and it is even to their advantage. The one that will form like the positive strain or that will act as the male can produce on its own. The one that will act as a female can produce its own. Even human beings, if by God grace we can develop or produce our young ones asexually, most of us wouldn't have married. You will just be there today. I want to make babies. Then either I will divide them from two young Michaels. Harris will divide them from two, maybe a triplet of Harriet. That is all. There's no need to wait for Mr. So and so or Mrs. So and so before we can procreate. You will just stand there. Today I have my money. Okay, I can. I think today I can give birth. I will just divide and form another living organism. But we need one another as humans. But for them to, when things are not working for them, they will need the other as support. Then they can undergo sexual reproduction, which we are yet to look through very shortly. So sexual reproduction occurs during, so the sexual one can occur during favorable condition of growth, and this one will occur as conjugation. So this one is undergo, we'll call it a conjugation, and that is the process it will use to form. And there are two types. That's a scalariform conjugation and lateral conjugation, and that depends on how they are lined up. So scalariform is like, let's say, a ladder form, and the lateral is how they are aligned. So are they aligned? Oh, sorry, I couldn't draw on the screen. So this one is an example of a lateral. So you see they are lying side by side, and that is the lateral conjugation. So the scalary form, it will be more like a ladder-like. So it could be top down as we stand over here. That will be the type of conjugation. So this is what happens. Conjugation, two different Spirogyra cells, they lie side by side. They form a two that we call a conjugated two. So their cell wall will now melt, extend to touch each other, and that is like a protuberance or an intromittent structure. So this will be like a phallus, or let me say a penis for them, so that it will allow them to fuse their characteristics over there. So here we can see that we have, wait, now I think my screen is shown over there. So this is the strand of the Spirogyra. This is a single cell, another cell. So we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Then we can have similar 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we can see some of them are different stages. So the reason is they're using this picture to show us what happened. It doesn't mean that this will go to, so this one is showing the first instant. Don't worry, I'll invite you to ask a question. Let me continue, please. So this one is one. So now this one, how it starts. All of them will do theirs differently, but the book here they didn't want to draw them 7 times. So this is the first step. So the first step, we see formation of conjugation two, and that will be the structure through which they can mix their. Now, why do we humans mate? We mate so that the sex cell or the sperm cell of a man can enter the egg cell of a woman. Now they fuse together, we form a zygote, embryo, fetus, then it continues that way. So for them to, they don't have a structure for reproduction. So they will form that structure, and we call that tube that will link them together as the conjugation tube. So we see the chloroplast is the nucleus is there. Now the first step is conjugation tube begin to form. That is whereby the cell membrane begin to melt down and form an extension together. Now when they touch themselves, something will happen. One of them will become a male, another become a female. So a lot of processes do occur, and what happens is that based on the physiology, can process that occur, one of them will become a male. That will be the plus side. Another will become the negative or the female side. So you see here, this one is moving down there. So this one become the positive strain. This one become the negative. So like the woman, this like the man. The man will drain his gamete into the woman. So the positive strain is here, negative strain is there. It will drain inside. Now you see everything has moved. So all of these cells will do this, so but we're using this to show step by step. So this is the first step that will happen. Second step, they touch. Now it will move there. Once it moves, you see that from a zygote, and this zygote is 2, and that's a diploid number. It is sexual, that of the male, the positive strand, and the negative strand. So this one can be there. When it rains or things become favorable, it can sprout out as a spore. Then we have another Spirogyra strand. So that is what I've showed to you on the diagram. Let me read something here and explain to you. And the person that raised the hand, I will invite you to ask you a question. Okay, you can ask your question. I think I've just explained everything there. There are no notes down there. That's the explanation I've given to you. A hand came up. If you have your question, you can ask. a hand came up, or the person was just trying the system. Any other person that one has a question can ask. So these are the steps. So step one. So here they will align. Let me say it that way. So yeah, okay, right there. Yeah, good evening. How are you? Every time. Oh yeah. So we have types of reproduction. This one, I'm sure you studied in junior high school. The two main types of reproduction are two. That is the sexual and asexual. For them, they are very likely they can undergo both. Humans, we undergo only sexual. Amoeba undergo only asexual. But here we have realized that the Spirogyra can undergo sexual. It can just by binary, sorry, we call that one fragmentation. Then another one it can undergo is conjugation, which is the sexual, whereby the one of the gametes will move to the other, as you can see on my screen now. Okay, so I think today happens to be your first time joining us live. You are welcome. Keep on joining us, and I'm sure you enjoy the time together with us. So, Radia, you are once again welcome. Yeah. All right. So you are welcome. So, any other question that someone has, the person can ask. So, I will continue. Today, it should be very, very short, so we can end our step. Okay, let me go. Now, excretion. Very, very simple. How does it excrete? It excretes through waste products and they are eliminated through the cell membrane. So it can also form the contractile vacuole, then it can leave it whereby excess water will leave with the excess waste. So all these are eliminated through the cell membrane. So the waste product of, let me say, the carbon dioxide will also diffuse out through the cell membrane. Excess water and other waste will also diffuse through the cell membrane. So that's how it excretes, it is structured. Now, response to stimuli. Spirogyra porticalis is able to respond to stimuli. I told you that when the sound intensity is too high, what happens? It can quell or let me say converge. So it will become small. It will not spread out. It will now come together. It will become denser. Then it will sink. If there's a little light, it now spread up so that it can get more light. So it exhibits a slow passive movement in response to environmental changes. Spirogyra forms long filaments that are capable of bending and curving in an enabling movement, which enable it to move a little bit. Now, if I maybe this is a Spirogyra, if it opens up, is that not movement? I'm opening my arm, that is movement. If I do my hand this way, I am coiling it, that is a movement. So Spirogyra is like a leaf that is blowing by wind. It can move based on direction of the wind that is blowing. So it is able to do some petty movement, which sometimes we call a gliding movement. So it's capable of bending and curving, which enables it to move. And they are capable of orientating towards light, as I told you, because they're photosynthetic, they are very, very reactive to light. Remember, the euglena has a photoreceptive structure that we call the eye spot, which enables it to sense light. The euglena doesn't have, but because it has chlorophyll, it can sense light. It directs itself to where light is, and it will be trained from where light is too high. So they strangulate to become heavy. Strangulate means that like when we strangle someone, like we are holding the person's neck, like putting something together, choking someone. So they can strangulate, or let me say they can bend or come together, just wind themselves together. Then they will become a little bit heavier, they sink. And they can also spread up. So they strangulate to become heavy and they will sink so that they move away from water. But the euglena will not strangulate. Euglena can locomote, so it will just go deeper into the water. But Spirogyra is like just like a plant or a mattress, let me say it that way. That because that's why it's called the blanket weed. So it will just lie up there and it will come together. Then it will move down by becoming denser. So it will a little bit sink. And when there's low light, they will loosen up and they become less heavy. So they will be afloat so that enough light can reach them for photosynthesis. Now, adaptation. The spelling of Spirogyra here is wrong. There should be no I, so please take note of that. It's a PDF. I can't delete it here unless I work on the Word document that I have. So adaptation of Spirogyra. It has a spiral chloroplast. So I've told that whenever we're talking about adaptation, mention the structures and the function, the role that the structures play, and that becomes a very good adaptation. So it has chlorophyll for photosynthesis. We can talk about the slimy nature, the mucilage that covers it, so it protects it. So once you step on it, the Spirogyra will still be there. It won't tear. It become unharmed. So you just step on it, you just slip off, then it will still be there. That's why when you are scrubbing it, especially the young ones, you have it difficult. Once you are scrubbing, it will just be sliding off already. So it has a thick slimy mucilage for protection. It has pyrenoids for storage, and the pyrenoids will be used for storing excess starch when it is being produced uh, in photosynthesis. Now, it is lightweight, which enables it to float on water. So, since it's very, very lightweight, it can float on water so that it can get enough sunlight. If it is deep in water, it won't get enough sunlight, and that will affect it. That is why it floats on water to get enough sunlight. It is thread-like structure, and its thread-like structure enables it to entangle to objects in water and not carried away. So now it looks like a thread. So sometimes you see a very thin Spirogyra in a gutter that is having a very high flowing water, but still you see that it will be moving up and down. It will still be hanging over there. It is not tearing. Why? Because it's thread-like. So you can even wind against a leaf over there so that they don't tear off. That's an adaptation. So it is a trailer, its trailer structure enables it to entangle to objects in water so that they don't become carried away. Even if they are carried away, wherever they land, they can still colonize that area because of fragmentation. So a little part will tear, it will go there, it will undergo its reproduction via fragmentation. So these are the structures that enable it to live successfully on this environment. Now, the economic importance of Spirogyra porticalis. After I finish it, I will invite questions, contributions from you, then we can end the lesson. So, Spirogyra porticalis, since it is autotrophic, it produces its own food. So, it serves as food for other organisms. It also takes in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, also give out oxygen for other organisms. These are the basic functions that we can have of the Spirogyra. So, it contributes to oxygen production through photosynthesis. Additionally, Spirogyra serve as food because one man's food is another man's poison. It's a food for some other organisms. So it serves as food for certain aquatic organisms, supporting the aquatic food chain. In research and education, Spirogyra porticalis is commonly studied organism for understanding plant cell structure. So some people sometimes if they want to work on plant, they can use the Spirogyra as a basis first to study so that they can manipulate them very well because they can easily study it unlike study a whole plant. So they can serve as a model to study plant and their behavior in education and research work. That's why we are studying about Spirogyra right now. So once you know its importance and some other structures, you'll be able to appreciate that of plant because they look very similar in some features to plant. So Spirogyra, oxygen, food, also for studies and research, which help us to build more upon knowledge about plant cell structure. So that is Spirogyra porticalis. If you have any question on Spirogyra, either its cell structure, the movement, respiration, the life process, or yes, I think your hand is up. Harriet, first, Harriet, you can ask your question, then Radia, I'll invite you to ask your question. Harriet, your question.
Sir, please, you said it serves as food for other organisms. What are some of the aquatic organisms
All right.
that feeds on the Spirogyra?
Okay, thank you very much. So I can't mention all of them, but what I know is that fishes do feed on them. So Spirogyra could be served as an even toad. some of these organisms told no, okay, told normally once they are on land, they will feed on insects and the rest.
Please, I'm asking of the Spirogyra is an organism.
Yes, it's an organism. It's a unicellular organism. I think right there you just join us, that is why. So I advise you in the afternoon to revise from the channel. So they are organisms. Why are they organisms? Because it can perform the 7 life processes. We talk about its movement. We talk about okay movement. It doesn't move, but okay it moves, but it doesn't locomote. We talk about its reproduction. We are talking about excretion. So it's an organism, but it's a one cell organism. Everything occurs within just the one cell. So right there, are you answered? Nana Manchra.
So please, I wanted to ask a question on the Spirogyra.
Yeah, do ask.
So please, is it medicinal?
Okay, for that I can't tell, but I'm sure it could have a medicinal property. Remember the other time we talked about Euglena aspharamylum. Yes, one thing I know, I just remembered, it is not proven scientifically, but I know people use it even to cure what do you call it, shingles, what we call anansi. I've heard that thing before. When people get shingles, sometimes they advise them to go and tear it up and put it there. I've heard testimonies that they do. Personally, I've not tried it before. Any other question? Natalia, thanks for the love. Okay, any other person? Any question or contribution? Then we can move on. If you have a question from today's lesson, let me know. Today, I want today to be a very short one. All right, so thank you all for joining. If there are no questions, if there is, you can alert me. So it's very good that you still join, making this a successful one. So please keep on studying so that at the end, when we resume school on the March 16th, so we have barely a week and let me say it's 5 days or 6 days to reopen school. And once we reopen, we are writing our first semester examination, which we have not even gotten up to week 10. We are now going to week 7. So I have a reading assignment for you, and I'll give you a test over there. So please kindly read on ecology. I will send a document tomorrow, God willing, to you. Read about the ecological terms and also anything about ecology. Once I submit the document, and go online to www.curriculumresource.edu.gh, you will get the study outline. It's even at the Google Classroom page. So the learner material, they are always review questions. The review questions, try and solve them. They are likely examinable questions any teacher or most teachers will are likely to ask. Make sure you can answer them. If you can't answer, go back to the note, go and watch the video, try and find answers to them. If you think there is no answer, you can search from the internet and you need my help or someone's explanation to understand better, you can put it on the page or chat me personally. But something that is easily found online or easily justified in books, no need calling. Let me have some peace of mind to also do some other things. But if you think you are in doubt, you are getting different answers, you want me to verify, I will be free at my free time. I'll respond to your messages either in the group or to address you. So thank you for being here for tonight, making tonight a success. God richly bless you. See you guys another time. That is Sunday, same time, whereby we will study the ecology and ecological terms. Bye to you all.